transgender boys who might not have their own money to go buy tampons. If they're provided free in the bathroom, it's a huge plus.
Men do not menstruate. Only women menstruate. Now, you can call yourself whatever you want.
Cis men don't menstruate, but trans men do menstruate.
No,
Same
they
as
don't.
non-binary people.
Only women.
Menstruating is not exclusive
Yes,
to
it
cis
is.
women. No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
So explain to me as to why my body menstruated at
if
some
your
point
chromosomes
then.
are XX and you're young, you menstruate.
Correct, but what about trans men and non-binary?
They're
We're
not
excluding
men.
a whole group of people
They're women
that
dressed
menstruate.
as men. You are not a man. People who hate the truth are because they see the truth as hateful. If you want to identify in any way you can, you're free to do so. But that does not mean that the rest of us have to join that illusion.
We love the anger in their eyes when you tell them the truth. Then call us hateful.
Really put those on the same level?
I absolutely
Racism
do.
and sexism, you put it on the same level as cultural appropriation?
That's exactly.
So if somebody wears their hair like you're wearing it, you put that on the same level as racism?
Absolutely. I put that on the same level as white supremacy, because white supremacy is intersectional.
And as a professor at Arizona State, everything that he said there is complete nonsense, except it's nonsense that has now been wholly imported into the Democrat Party. You can wear whatever haircut you want. You can make whatever jokes you want. You can eat whatever food you want. You can put on whatever clothes you want to put on. These people don't own you. They don't own your mind. They don't know whether you're doing something to honor it or make fun.
He's wearing Dutch braids. He's guilty of doing precisely what he defines as racist.
Well, what about the work ethic of Gen Z? What do you guys think about this younger generation and how they work, don't work, move around, job-wise, what they expect?
Well, I don't like stereotypes of any kind. I think there are ambitious, industrious people in your generation. There were, in our generation, there were also deadbeats. It's just a very, it's so individual.
You know, if you're seeing at Dollar Tree on your timeline, that's because they're under fire after a manager in Indiana posted, "Help wanted," but only for boomers and not Gen Z because, quote, "don't know what work actually means." And then I apologize for us closing again. My 2 new cashiers quit because I said their boyfriends couldn't stand here for their entire shift. Don't hire Gen Z. They don't know what work actually means. Now hiring baby boomers only. Thanks.
Wow.
So apparently they had a problem with, I guess,
But I think they're being way too
boyfriends showing up.
Yes.
You're right.
they're
You
definitely
can't
being way too
assume
general.
that because a
Yes.
few Gen Z people are, they're all like that. And also, like, low-key, that sounds illegal. Open discrimination and bragging about it.
I think Dollar Tree agreed with you because they did put up this statement. The manager in question is no longer employed by the company, and Dollar Tree released a statement that it did not approve or condone the sign. John's a professor, and he says his Gen Z students are lazy, less motivated, only interested in themselves, and need to socialize more, that they're consumed by their phones. You say if somebody's up giving a presentation or whatever, not them, they don't even pay attention to it.
They seem to want to focus on their phones more than listening and learning. So it's frustrating for me sometimes. Again, not generalizing that all students are like that, but a lot of them are on their phones while I'm talking. And I say, if you need to talk on your phone, you can go outside and talk on your phone.
Are they failing?
No, because of grade inflation. Grade inflation scares me.
What is grade inflation?
They all expect to get A's no matter what. But years ago, it wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I've been teaching for almost 40 years, and I feel a lot of pressure on myself to give the students at least a C, even if they're not doing an adequate amount of work.
Oh.
Which, first and foremost, thank you for being like a teacher and a professor. Like when I was in school, I always, I'm not gonna say I was the perfect person. Yeah, I have a little bit of attitude.
But again, I've learned also from your generation that I have to understand where you're coming from.
Do you think we like waste our time on our phones, essentially?
No, because I'm turning into one of you. I'm on my phone all the time now.
Right.
Oh, he's going to the dark side.
I get a message from Apple that says you were on your phone for 5 hours a day last week. I'm like, oh my God, I'm turning into a Gen Z person.
All right, do you have a story or a question for me?
If they are like this, look at what they're being taught.
You should be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about and have an exchange of ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. It doesn't work that way. When you put out something that is at odds with the agenda is intolerant when you're dealing with these activists.
Well, that's exactly what Dr. Phil has done. And this time, he's not holding back. Dr. Phil, the American author and television personality we all know for letting others have their say, has had enough of this woke madness. But now he's the one doing the talking, and the woke crowd is losing it. Phil's not just concerned. He's calling out the dangers of expressing any opinion that goes against the woke agenda.
As a parent, I expect to be engaged in all aspects of my kids' learning environment. That's really not the issue. The issue is that this law is having the effect of going into the school and saying, your child doesn't get to have a book that has 2 moms. Your kid doesn't get access to it. It's not just an individual.
That's not my question.
It's not just an individual. The difference here is you're trying to make decisions
you're trying to
for me as a parent.
No, you're deflecting the question.
I'm
Answer my
answering the question.
You're answering their question. You're not answering mine.
Go ahead.
Why you would assume that you know better than the parents?
I don't assume that at all.
Then,
As a parent, I don't assume it. I don't want it assumed about me, and I don't assume it about other parents.
Okay.
We want parents to be affirming. We want to collaborate as educators. What we recommend for trans kids and LGBTQ youth is that they achieve congruence in all aspects of their life. So they're able to be the same person in community, at school, and at home. And we want to provide access to information that's going to make that possible. And I think that's the role schools have.
The big piece that's missing from this is my 5-year-old child. We asked for education. We were told no by our school because of parents and their rights. And so watching as a parent and my rights and my child's rights to education being violated because of things like this bill, I get up in arms. I think about all of those 5-year-olds who can't learn. As a teacher, that bothers me. I want to remove all of those barriers from any child, right?
One thing that's getting confused here, I think, is there is a line between diversity and respect and teaching anti-bullying and fair treatment between children and between teachers and children. There's a line between that and creating an environment at a public school where a belief system held by a child and or their parents must be validated and affirmatively proclaimed to be believed in by every single person in that public school environment. There is a line there, and I think we're losing track of where that line is. It is one thing to prohibit and train kids and teach kids about diversity and difference and tolerance. That's all the homosexual community ever asked for with regard to lesbian and gay youth over time. Tolerance. We were not out there 20 years ago trying to say that because I'm a lesbian, you must affirmatively celebrate it, say that it's a wonderful thing, even if it's to the detriment of your own personal, moral, or religious beliefs. All we wanted was tolerance. When it comes to gender identity, the problem is it's very different than homosexuality because what's being confused and conflated now is there is no room for tolerance and therefore no room for pluralism of belief because the line and the message has become in order to achieve safety. Safety requires validation from everybody. But that inherently encroaches on other people's rights.
Home and school are different. You can believe a lot of really terrible things in your house. But that doesn't mean you're going to be able to express them at a public school, which is for everyone. So everyone has the right to believe what they believe, but at a public school, all students have a right to feel safe. And there is speech that can be expressed in a public school that can make my child feel very unsafe. Lots of different children for various aspects of their identity. So kids need accurate language to describe the world around them. That's not something that we're going to check with people who want to take their rights away about if it's a good idea before we provide that.
No, but public schools need to focus on fact, not on beliefs.
Every major medical, psychological, and educational organization that exists in the United States is in complete agreement about what LGBTQ youth need.
The false
what we're
consensus
seeing right
of medical
now,
associations
what we're seeing right now is
no
conspiracy.
I think the issue starts when you claim your child is trans. If your goal is to let the child find who they really are, then why label them at such a young age? There is a distinction between teaching tolerance and forcing belief, and if that belief involves hormone therapy falsely proclaimed as safe and reversible, then we better not mix the two.
Introduce yourself, doctor.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Safai. I'm a psychiatrist. I treat a lot of trans students. I just want to say that if the child could have gone to the parents, they would have before going to a teacher. Now, whether it's fear of not being accepted or in some cases safety, they chose to go to the next best adult, which is the teacher. If you break that confidence, if you break that trust, the kid has nowhere to go. Now, I understand your point of view, but the school doesn't know the dynamic of the family, right? What if the kid is actually in some sort of danger if they come out?
That's a big if.
They didn't give me any chance to give any input into what I thought was going on with my daughter. In fact, when I tried to say what I thought was going on and why this didn't actually make sense to me, because I know my daughter, nobody loves our child more than her parents. Nobody has a stronger desire to have her grow up happy, healthy, and productive. Okay. And there's nothing that would make us reject her.
And let me ask you, Dr. Safai, if you have a child that has suicidal ideation or homicidal ideation, do you not have an obligation to include the parent? So what we're doing basically...
Are you comparing being trans to being suicidal or homicidal?
No. I think let's not misrepresent what I just said. What I said is that you have a code of conduct when it comes to minor children. Yes. And so why do we change the rules
when it
comes to this issue?
Whatever a child tells me in an examination room is confidential unless they're a danger to self or others. That is the only case that I have a duty to report to the parents. Right. Anything else that is said to me in an examination room is privilege. Well, the same thing should apply.
Let me interrupt that for a second. That's only true once that child is 12 years old, correct?
Right.
Well, I mean, no. Even if a 5-year-old tells me something that's not a safety issue, but wants to keep it in the
That's just simply not correct.
That's not correct.
You don't have a doctor-patient confidentiality bond with a 5-year-old child.
If a 5-year-old...
And how many 5-year-old children pick up the phone and call and make an appointment with you?
No, say I'm examining the kid in an examination room and they tell me, oh, I feel like a boy lately. I have no duty to report that. Unless they tell me, I've been feeling like a boy and it's really messing with my psyches and I'm having the suicidal thoughts, that 100% I have to report.
And you said, are you equating like homicide tendencies and suicide tendencies with transgender? The fact is, there is much higher risk among the transgender population.
The therapist is so defensive in this clip. Her inability to refrain from interrupting other people's thoughts shows that she has a one-track mind and is unable to take accountability for being mistaken, which is something we all are at some point. I haven't seen the whole thing, but it's clear that she doesn't fully believe what she is trying to defend.
Children, are you kidding me? It's like boycott this person, boycott this company. Where did we get to this? Now they're canceling each other. It should be counsel culture, not cancel culture. Let's sit down and talk about it. Let me educate you. Maybe you don't understand. Maybe when you do, you won't agree, but let's talk about this.
I think it's social media. I think it's echo chambers. I think it's people having the ability to discuss things without any social interaction. They're not looking at each other. They're not feeling the other person's emotions and feelings. They're not looking into their eyes. It's a very inhumane way for people to communicate. It's very sterilized, and you can assassinate a person's character or attack them or say horrible, insulting, and threatening things, and you don't feel any response.
Well, how many things do people type that they would not say to you in an elevator?
Yeah.
They had, like you said, they look you in the eye or they were in an elevator. Same thing with road rage. If people blow the horn, yell stuff. They wouldn't say that to you if you step in front of them on an escalator.
Right.
They wouldn't say, you rat bastard.
Right.
But they'll say it because they don't have to own it.
Right.
And so many of these people that jump on the bandwagon, they don't even know what they're talking about. They just see somebody jumping on somebody's ass. They go, hey, this is great. This will be fun.
Pile on.
Yeah. And they don't even know what they're talking about. And people's lives get ruined. And that's not solving a problem. That's just being a keyboard bully. And that's a terrible misuse of social media. It's terrible misuse of the internet. And if you would counsel instead of cancel, we could really make some progress.
There's just very few people capable of thinking that way. And social media, unfortunately, reinforces this idea, and it reinforces these tribal groups that connect to their ideology. They support these people in this little tribal group. The problem is that they step out of line at all. These people that are canceling, they run out of people to cancel, and they go after each other. They go out, progressives in particular. You're not progressive enough. They'll go after you for enabling.
Yeah, I had somebody write an article the other day, some site I've never even heard of, that says Dr. Phil's become a platform for right-wing hate mongers or something. And they listed some shows where I'd had on people on the right giving them a voice. They went down through like 6 or 8 shows. And not one time did they mention that sitting right across from them was the other side. Like one of them was I had Lila Rose on, who's the Right to Life spokesperson. Very smart woman, and she was arguing that. I had the president of the National Organization of Women and Ben Crump on the other, sitting right across from her. They didn't mention that they were there.
Yeah, of course they don't, because it's not a real article. The article's not a real thought. It's an attack. It's not an unbiased, objective assessment of the conversation. It's horseshit.
But they did like 8 out of 8. They did not mention one time that the other side was there. And it's because they don't want to hear anybody's side but theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. They just
and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to let both sides say what they have to say and let people make up their own minds about what they want to think and what they want to feel.
Well, that's the way things are supposed to be held. That's the way things are supposed to be done. When you really want to solve a problem, you got to let both people talk, and you got to figure out who's right and who's wrong. And that's why censorship is so dangerous. Because the correct answer to censorship, like this whole Kanye.
Whoa, slow it down, Dr. Phil. I don't think our elected leaders would agree with you on those wants. They may say they do, but their direct actions contradict that.
Some demographics come to the table and have to overcome racism, unconscious bias, misogyny. And so how do we help level the playing field for everyone?
Okay, so that means you're trying to create equality of outcome.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear you saying about playing God.
Yeah.
How do you create equality of outcome when people aren't the same? You're right. Some people are shorter, some people are taller looking over that fence. They can't both play in the NBA.
Right.
You can't create equality of outcome. What gives a DEI program the right to come in and try and alter the nature of things to create
People must start trying to help themselves instead of whining for someone to hand everything to them.
Coca-Cola is getting a lot of attention for some of their sensitivity training with their employees. Your comment was that, in part, they're teaching some of their employees how to be, quote, less white.
Absolutely.
How the hell do you do that?
Well, I'd like to make the point that it's not just Coca-Cola that is engaging in this sort of activity and
I'm
these
just
sort of
using that as an
trainings.
example.
Yeah, it's a great example, and it's happening in corporations and in schools all across America, and they are effectively teaching people. Coca-Cola said, quote, how to be less white. They assume that things like being a perfectionist, engaging in or having a response to objectivity, having a neutral or a nuclear family. These are inherently extensions of whiteness.
Listening to John Mayer.
According to Coca-Cola, these are extensions of whiteness.
They found a way to insult all the races at the same time. Equality.
The smartphone came out, everything changed.
And where everyone gets their news from. You're just to jump in here, when your network starts, you're hosting the primetime show called Dr. Phil Primetime. And for an upcoming episode, my understanding is that you went to the southern border. Now, you're saying that you're going to give people facts. What did you take away from that experience, and what kind of reporting are you going to be bringing back from that experience?
I'll tell you a fact I took away. I talked to the head of all the border guards down there, the head of the union. I asked him straight up, kids are coming over the border with numbers written on them, phone numbers and addresses. Do we check those out? He said, well, we call them. is it possible that we're sending them into known prostitution rings or sweatshops? He said, it's not possible, it is absolute. We are using American tax dollars to ship children into known prostitution
All
and
children or
sweatshops.
some children?
Well, who knows?
Okay.
We don't know. I said, are you,
So what kind of checking do they do? So
they
'cause you
call the
said-
number and say, do you know about this child? They say, yes. Will you receive them when they come? Yes. I said, is it possible that that's a prostitution ring? He said, we know enough to know that in a number of cases, it has turned out to be absolute.
Seeing them squirm when someone states facts that don't fit their constant narrative is hilarious.
Not that most people on the left, I think, believe this stuff, but the ones who don't, my critique with them is you're fucking cowards because you know the insanity of your own fringe, but you don't call it out. And my question is always, like, this stuff, you're just saying about, like, the French or the experiencing homelessness. Why do this is obviously something that teenagers put up on Twitter or Instagram or something. Why does the rest of the country, actual adults, bow to it and follow it and go along with it? Because everyone is rolling their eyes. Almost everyone except the fucking 14-year-old who posted that. Why do we follow teenagers?
I mean, it's like the emperor's new clothes. I mean, you remember that fable? The emperor's...
The message of the emperor's new clothes is timeless and vital.
Comedian Tyler Fisher claims he has been turned down by 3 agencies because they said they just weren't looking for white men.
Do you think it was justified for me to be told, we can't represent you, you don't have the chance to now compete for jobs because you're white? Yes or no?
I think that what is described
Yes
by
or no?
you.
Don't give me your little...
Well,
He's not just making this up.
Let me say this.
He recorded the call with an agent he claims turned him down for being white. So let's listen to the call.
Is it a policy, like, explicit that they're not taking on any, like, white men, or is it, like, case by case?
On-camera talent, stand-up, probably not. No.
Okay, so no white men are allowed for on-camera stuff.
I guess it's right now where it stands, but like, yeah, it could change in a year depending on if casting directors, that's not their feedback anymore.
What do we do about heart?
Discrimination is discrimination, no matter who it's against.
These are all celebrities who have been called out, criticized, and condemned for cultural appropriation. Has anyone here ever called someone out for cultural appropriation? You too? You have? You have? Yep. Has anybody here ever thought twice about wearing something or doing something, even cooking something, out of fear of being accused of appropriation? You have?
Yes.
Yeah, what was it?
My daughter had braids and she wanted me to get braids that were just like hers.
Why her but not you?
She's half black and half white.
Okay.
And so I just think that some things should stick with those cultures.
Well, no matter whether you believe it's harmful or you think people should just be allowed to do what they want, there is no doubt this is a hot button topic that people are passionate about. Dr. Neil Lester, a professor of English at Arizona State University, right?
I am, yes.
And you've published, lectured, and taught extensively the area of African American studies. What do you think about appropriation? Do you think this is a real thing, something that people need to be cognizant of? And if so, why?
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, because if we in fact are trying to look at the humanity of other people, and we are trying to live in a place where we are trying to be respectful and mindful of folks, then we need to be aware of things that are important to other cultures that don't necessarily look like us or share the same values. So it is a thing, and people need to be aware of.
Can anybody appropriate?
Anybody can appropriate, yes.
Not just white people?
Absolutely. Appropriation is intersectional. So old people can appropriate youth culture can appropriate old folks. People who are not incarcerated can impersonate prisoners or those who are incarcerated. Men appropriate women's attire for the sake of funny. and mocking. So absolutely anybody can do it, and everybody on some level may have flirted with it.
Okay, but a lot of the time that people that I've seen are called out for this, it's not that they were making fun or mocking in some way. It was just that they had adopted a fashion or a style or whatever.
I would say that's a performance. So if somebody's culture and somebody's identity becomes a performance, then it's reductive. So if you're reducing, for example, say the civil rights movement to an afro, and you wear that, or you wear dreadlock wigs, you know, that Rastafarians may wear, you do that because it's edgy, because it's cool, but ultimately because it's not you, and you're getting some kind of cultural capital from that by doing it.
And who's hurt by that?
Well, it's not a matter of who's hurt by it, it's who's being disrespected by it.
Well, who's being disrespected by it?
A whole culture of people whose identities are wrapped in whatever you're dressing into and can then take off.
Amala, you don't agree?
I don't, no.
You think worrying about appropriation is a waste of time?
I think not only is it somewhat a waste of time, but it's nearly impossible. You just mentioned there are nearly hundreds of ways that one could appropriate somebody else's culture or their livelihood. And to expect any one human being to keep on top of that throughout their entire life, I think, is an unrealistic ask. And I think imitation is a form of flattery. I appreciate my food by eating it. I appreciate the hair that I wear by wearing it, by putting on the clothes that I wear. And every single item around us in this room could probably be attributed to a certain culture. Do we have to constantly worry about what culture we gain things from?
Does intention have anything to do with
Well,
it?
I guess I didn't hear anything about anybody worrying about it. What I hear about when I think about and talk about cultural appropriation is people becoming more aware of it. We could say the same thing about racism, sexism, homophobia. Just because you can't solve it and don't see it at every corner doesn't mean we shouldn't be aware.
Culture is to be shared. We're all the same species and we learn with each other. Looking up to another culture is not appropriation, it's appreciation. As long as there's no disrespect, culture can be enjoyed by all.
Fail the town square test, and they would get unpersoned. They would just disappear. I mean, everything, they would disappear from the records.
They're just gone.
They would just, you couldn't find anything about them. We call it canceling them now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing as he wrote about in 1948. And they started eliminating words from, in the book, they started eliminating words, and there was just what they called newspeak.
Mm-hmm.
And you could only use these words and not use any others.
Same thing.
And people started saying, well, I actually like that because I don't want to have to make any decisions. Just tell me what words I can use, and I'll use those, and then I don't have to think.
Wow.
And how crazy is that? We have the First Amendment protecting free speech, and we're muzzling each other. It's not the government coming in and taking it away, right? It's now we're muzzling each other. You say something I don't like, and we will attack you. We will cancel you. We will get you fired. We will get you labeled as a hater. We will get you labeled as phobic, whatever. And you know, you'll wear the scarlet letter and be unacceptable anymore. And it's got people, I have one statistic in the book that says the percentage of people that are afraid to express their opinion has tripled since 1950. So in the last 75 years.
And think of 1950 as the beginning of the Red Scare.
Yeah. It's tripled since then. People are just saying, I'd just rather not say anything. How bad is that?
You don't have a civilization when that happens.
No, you don't. And what you're saying is you've been trying to wake people up and have. I mean, don't sell yourself short. You've awakened a lot of people. It's a process. And I think that a lot of these activists have pushed too far, too long, too hard, and people have started saying, wait a minute. You're now messing with.
We, the people, are not being governed, but we are under siege. Stand up, step forward, speak out, and you will pay a price in today's political environment.
For example, a short person and a tall person, and they're both looking over a fence, and they have the same block to stand on. And the tall person, of course, can see over the fence, but the short person has not been lifted up enough to see over the fence. So how do we help level the playing field for everyone?
How do you create equality of outcome when people aren't the same? You're right. Some people are shorter, some people are taller looking over that fence. They can't both play in the NBA.
Right.
You can't create equality of outcome. What gives a DEI program the right to come in and try and alter the nature of things to create equality?
She can level the playing field by staying home and caring for her children instead of social engineering.
Beats the drum on versus this side beats the drum on, instead of being commonsensical and saying, how do we solve this problem?
Yeah, I think very few people are able to argue without attaching themselves to ideas. So if their idea, when they have an argument about something, if you say something that they agree with, instead of accepting that you say something they agree with, they want to fight against it because they just want to be right. Very few people are good at ideas being discussed in arguments because the argument becomes very personal. Like they think about their own self-worth and they attach it to being the winner of the argument. They want to use ad hominem attacks, insults, and trying to figure out a way to verbally joust with you to the point where they're successful.
When people start assassinating character, it's because their ideas won't withstand challenge. This cancel culture bullshit, cancel culture should be counsel culture. If you say something that's offensive to my values, I should counsel with you about it, not cancel you, not get everybody to hate you. You see somebody that says something on Twitter or says something in an interview that is offensive to some group, and all of a sudden you start reading the messages they get. It's like, I hope you get ass cancer and die, you son of a bitch. I'll cut your throat. I'll come to your house and kill your children. Are you kidding me? It's like, boycott this person, boycott this company. Where did we get to this? Now they're canceling each other. It should be counsel culture, not cancel culture. Let's sit down and talk about it. Let me educate you. Maybe you don't understand.
Whoa, slow it down, Dr. Phil. We don't think our elected leaders would agree with you on those wants. They may say they do, but their direct actions contradict that.
You should be able to talk about whatever you want to talk about and have an exchange of ideas.
Yeah. No.
Good luck with that.
Yeah.
Good luck with that. It doesn't work that way. When you put out something that is at odds with the agenda is intolerant when you're dealing with these activists.
Thanks for tuning in. Who do you think is winning? Drive, Phil or Woke Hollywood? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe for more on this clash. See you next time.